American Top 40.
These are the hits as ranked by Billboard magazine. Well, now we're up to the current hit by the band who weren't afraid to change their sound. In Rolling Stone magazine, critic Billy Altman wrote, "There never had been a rock and roll sound like the one introduced by the Kinks with their first hit, You Really Got Me. With one simple riff, Ray Davies and his brother Dave virtually invented power chord rock." End of quote. That's power chord with a C-H-O-R-D. Here's a piece of that first Kinks hit.
Girl, you really got me going. You got me so I don't know what I'm doing.
From 1964, the Kinks and You Really Got Me. After a few more hard rock hits, the Kinks began to drift toward a ballad sound with songs of social satire, and they even used the English music hall style.
Blazing on a sunny afternoon.
From 1966, that's Sunny Afternoon. The Kinks didn't hit the top 40 again till 1970, and they did it with a song that rocked much harder. This top 10 smash.
Well, I'm not the world's most physical guy, but oh my Lola.
From 1970, the Kinks and Lola. Now, throughout the 70s, the Kinks recorded concept albums with all different styles of music, from English music hall to American country and western, from rock to blues to Tin Pan Alley. And heading into the 80s, they haven't stopped experimenting. Their current hit may have been influenced by the Caribbean sound with a synthesizer imitating steel drums. At number 6, here's Come Dancing by the Kinks. Come Dancing, the Kinks on American Top 40, produced by Ray Davies and written by Ray. At number 6, second week in a row.
American Top 40.
Radio plays them, record stores sell them, Billboard ranks them, and AT40 counts them down. Now, our story of the rock band who found out the hard way that you don't make it in show business without paying your dues, both figuratively and literally. This is a story of the Kinks, the English band who ran off a string of hits in the middle 60s, including You Really Got Me, Tired of Waiting for You, A Well-Respected Man, and Sunny Afternoon. And then it stopped. You see, during a good portion of the time the Kinks had that string of hits, thousands and thousands of fans in America had seen them on tour, playing concerts, and making TV appearances. But in 1966, the Kinks made a television appearance that changed everything. Their management didn't pay the proper dues to the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. And then there were some altercations between the Kinks management and some promoters whom they blamed. That led to some dates in court. And when the smoke all cleared, the Kinks had been barred from making any concert or television appearances in the USA. Their record sales here plummeted, and their career bottomed out. The Kinks had to fight their way back to the top. Almost 4 years later, in 1969, the ban had been lifted, and the Kinks, who made very sure all the right dues were paid and all the right deals were made this time, toured America again, and they scored a top 10 comeback hit called Lola. The Kinks were back. Well, this week, the Kinks are in the countdown with their current hit. Falling from number 6 to 13, here's Come Dancing.
American Top 40. American Top 40.
Well, now we're up to the band who used to be notorious for their rowdy stage shows, performances that usually ended in a fight. They're one of the classic British rock bands born way back in the 60s, the Kinks. And the Kinks quickly became known for their sloppy, aimless, out-of-control concerts. There was constant sibling rivalry between lead singer Ray Davies and his younger brother, guitarist Dave Davies. Then drummer Mick Avery would step into the fray, adding fuel to the fire. And by the early 70s, Ray Davies had a drinking problem, which made things even worse. He'd often forget the words to songs as the band would fall out of time and out of tune. After each concert, critics would write that the Kinks were bound to break up soon. In a typical show, Ray would amble drunkenly about the stage, trip on Dave's guitar cord, and tumble into an amplifier. Now, that would be followed by a round of name-calling between Ray, Dave, and Mick. Mick would finally toss away his drumsticks in disgust, and Dave would kick over Mick's drums. Nightly disaster. Some fans cared, some didn't. The critics, they couldn't believe it. Finally, the Kinks realized they couldn't go on like that. They had to shape up or they would indeed break up, and that was something they didn't want to do. These days, the Kinks concerts are still a wild, fun event, but they're professional and well executed, energetic, but in control. And the Kinks are enjoying renewed success on the pop chart, the biggest in their 20-year history. Up 2 notches this week to number 34. Here are the Kinks. And don't forget to dance. Don't forget to dance. Survey song number 34, moving up 2 notches. The 12th top 40 hit for the Kinks from England.
American Top 40.
Based on Billboard chart appearances, the top 10 in the 80s and the top 40 in the 60s and 70s, this is the Triathlon of rock and roll. 2 groups competing in our triathlon were part of the first British invasion of the 60s, spearheaded by the Beatles. Here's one of those groups, a band originally called the Ravens. When they started out, they played parties for young English aristocrats, some of whom weren't too nice. One night, they booed and forced the group's lead singer off stage because they didn't like him. The rhythm guitarist, Ray Davies, took over, and the Ravens became the Kinks. At number 32 in our rock and roll triathlon, the Kinks. Singer Ray Davies singing about the days when his big sister used to go out for a night on the town. Here's the 80s top 10 smash, Come Dancin'. The Kinks, they hit in the 60s, 70s, and the 80s. That was their number 6 song from 1983, Come Dancin'. The Kinks dance into the number 32 spot in our special countdown.
The hits from coast to coast.